My review of the Ace Frehley album Origins Volume 2. It was released in 2020 and produced by Ace Frehley and Alex Salzman. So this album I bought when it first came out, and I probably listened to it like 2 or 3 times and then kind of stopped. Although I did listen to a few of the songs off here for quite a while after that. Like, I know the song I liked the most off of here stayed like pretty heavily in my rotation for like a year at least after I got this. So there was stuff on here that I liked and kind of listened to more, but as a whole, these covers albums just don't like excite me as much as a regular studio album. So it didn't really like get a whole lot of play all the way through for me. The album opens with Good Times, Bad Times, Led Zeppelin cover, and I kind of like, when I saw that he had covered this song, I was a little bit like, oh no, why did he do that? And I kind of like, yeah, it's a rough way to start the album, I think, but not like for the reason I thought it would be, because I thought I was going to hate this song because of like his voice, because like he just really doesn't have the voice to be doing Zeppelin, especially not like a first album song. But when I was listening to it, I'm like, yeah, his vocal isn't great, like it's not really that good or anything, but it didn't ruin it for me at first. What really kind of like kills this cover for me is when he adds in that like other verse of his that it's just really like cheesy and just doesn't work. So like maybe if he'd just done the song and just left it with the verses it had and not tried to like add anything to it, it might have worked better for me. But him just adding that kind of like kills this. So album gets off to a really rough start with Good Times, Bad Times. The second track, Never in My Life, a mountain cover. Not actually familiar with the original version of this one, and I think that like pretty much all of the tracks on here that I'm less familiar with, like the originals, I tend to like those a little bit more than I do the ones that I know the original of. But I like this one. I think the song's got a pretty cool riff to it. I like the solo on it. Pretty catchy song, so that one is pretty good. Third track, Space Truckin', Deep Purple cover. This one features Robert Sabino on keys. Not really familiar with him, but I like the key work on this song. This one I am familiar with the original of, and I like that one a lot. I like it more than this one, but I do enjoy this one. I think it's pretty good cover. I like his goofy little like ad libs that he does with the vocal. So yeah, that one for me is kind of a minor highlight because I do enjoy it. Fourth track, I'm Down, a Beatles cover featuring John 5. This one I like, but I don't know, it was kind of to me, like I'm usually complaining that he kind of does like, I guess like the obvious choices of his songs to cover instead of like picking kind of more obscure ones. And like, to me at least, this song's kind of like obscure. Like I had to take a minute and think like, okay, where's that? What's that even on? And I'm like, oh, it's Disc 1 of Past Masters. That's why I'm not that familiar with it. But yeah, I do know the original of this. Not one of my favorite Beatles songs, or one that I listen to a lot. Like I just said, I had to like kind of think, oh yeah, which album's that on? But yeah, it's kind of a strange choice, I feel like, of song for him to cover. And I almost wish he would have picked something else, because I'm not like hugely crazy about the song. Like I think it's fine, and I think it's a decent cover of it. But I think there are more interesting Beatles songs that he could have picked. Like I can't really think of one off the top of my head that I would really like to have heard him do. But I don't know, something maybe a little bit more like psychedelic. I think it would have been fun to hear him do from the Beatles rather than this track. The fifth track, Jumpin' Jack Flash, Rolling Stones cover with Lita Ford on vocals. I think she sounds good. I guess my biggest problem with this song is more that it's kind of another one that I wouldn't have chosen for him to cover. It's never been like my favorite of the Stones' big hits, and so here I kind of just like find it a little bit boring, and he doesn't really like do anything that interesting with it. I mean, he doesn't really do like a lot with the arrangements, I don't feel like, on this, as far as like making the songs different. But like, I don't know, it just, like I said, it's not my favorite Stone song. It's one I've heard a lot, so I kind of wish he had just like picked a different Stone song if he was going to cover a Stone song. Actually, did pick one here that I think it would have been interesting to hear him do In Another Land off of Satanic rather than do this one, because I don't know, he did 2000 Man off there and kind of really changed it, so I think it'd be interesting to hear him do more stuff off of that album. The 6-track Politician is a Cream cover featuring John 5, and I actually kind of like this one better than his Cream cover of White Room on the first Origins. I just think that this song kind of suits his voice better. But yeah, I like this one. I think it's got some pretty cool guitar on it. So that's kind of like another minor highlight for me. 7-track Lola, the Kinks cover. Not crazy about this one. I don't know. It's just, this is another one where I think it was a bad choice of song. I mean, I like the song, the Kinks version of it. I like a lot, but here he doesn't really add anything to it. He doesn't really improve on it. He just kind of does his version, which is similar to the Kinks version, but just not as good. So I don't know. I just think that there were better, more interesting Kinks songs that he could have picked. And once again, I couldn't really come up with any specific examples of songs that would have worked for him. But I don't know. Just I think Lola was a bad choice for him to cover. The 8th track, 30 Days in the Hole, Humble Pie cover featuring Robin Zander on vocals. And this one, I think I've heard the original since then, and I like it, but I had not heard it when I got this album. And this is my favorite track on here. I like the vocal from Robin Zander. I like the riff to the song. I think it's a catchy song. I like the bass part on here as well. So yeah, this one for me was a highlight, and I actually listened to this version or that version a lot for a year. It stayed in my playlist. The 9th track, Manic Depression, Hendrix cover featuring Bruce Kulick. This one is one where I think he made a pretty good choice of song to cover, a song that works for him. It's obviously not as good as the Hendrix version, but it's pretty cool. Especially to hear him and Bruce play together, that's really cool. So this was another one that I enjoyed. The 10th track, Kicks, Paul Revere and the Raiders cover, and this is another one where I have not heard the original version, but I do like this cover. Kind of another minor highlight for me. The 11th track, We Gotta Get Out of This Place, an Animals cover, and I like this one. I like the original version better, but this one works. I think his vocal's not that's kind of the weakest part of it, really, but it works pretty good. And that's the regular close of the album, so it ends on a good note. But the version I have also has a bonus track, She, Kiss cover, and it's fine. I don't think it really adds anything special to the album, and I prefer the Kiss version, both the studio and the live version, to this. So Origins Volume 2, I think comparing it to Origins Volume 1, I feel like this one kind of sounds better production-wise, except for I think Ace's vocals don't sound that great on some of this. But I think that this one has kind of more low points, and more kind of, I don't know, just more bad moments than the first one does as a whole, even though I think it sounds a little bit better. When I bought this and the first time I listened to it, I think I would have said then that it was better than the first one. But now, as I've gone back through them, I think that I would say that this one's a little bit worse than the first one. Yeah, I don't know. I think overall there's some good stuff on here. My favorite track on here, 30 Days in the Hole, I've listened to that more than anything I've listened to on the first album. So I'd say the highlights of this album are probably higher for me than anything off the first album. But the bad things are a lot worse. So, yeah, Origins Volume 2, I mean, it's not bad for a covers album, but it's not something I'd recommend to get unless you're a diehard Ace fan and you've got all his other regular studio albums. Then, you can move on to this, but I would even get the first one before I got this one. So, yeah, not bad for a covers album, but don't start here or anything.